Alright, good evening everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Like I said before in my next video, like I said in my previous video, I said in my next video I'm going to be solving this one and this one. Yes, that's what I'm going to be doing today, but I still want to touch this one again, like this. So actually we are finished, but there's something I want to do. I'll do them when I finish solving this. If there's still time, I will show you what I do. So now the example one says the absolute value of x. Okay, sorry. I'm going to be solving this too. I've solved this one, so I'm going to be solving this one. Now this one says that absolute value of a, b is less than equal to, is less or equal to absolute value of a, absolute value of b. Now this is for all a, b in what? R. How are we going to do this? Okay, how we're going to do this is I'm going to solve it using two methods. And the method one is easy. You just kill it and burn it. So how are we going to kill it and burn it? You remember that when we have something like a multiplied by b is going to give us what? A, b, right? Yes. So now having this in mind now, this one is what? A, b. Here is a multiplied by b. So we have the absolute value of a multiplied by b now is going to be equal to the absolute value of what? A. And this is equal to absolute value of, okay, let me say, I'll say a multiplied by b is equal to what? AB. Now, absolute value of a, absolute value of a now is equal to absolute value of a, absolute value of a times what? B over b. Now, this is equal to absolute value of a. Okay, this implies the absolute value of a is equal to what? Absolute value of a multiplied by b. A multiplied by b multiplied by 1 over b. Now, this implies that absolute value of a is equal to absolute value of a multiplied by b, then absolute value of what? Okay, all over what? Absolute value of b. I hope I'm correct. This implies that I have absolute value, multiply both sides by absolute value of b, absolute value of a, absolute value of b, since we have is less or equal to absolute value of a multiplied by absolute value of b, which is what? So, this is it. Let's take another one. Let's take the one of b. Let's say absolute value of b is now equal to, it's equal to absolute value of b multiplied by a over a. A divided by a is what? 1. B times 1 is what? B. So this implies that absolute value of b is equal to absolute value of b times a all over a. Now this implies that absolute value of b is equal to, okay, let's say it's less or equal to the absolute value of b multiplied by a all over what? Absolute value of a. You multiply both sides by absolute value of a, you now give you that it implies that absolute value of a, absolute value of b is less or equal to absolute value of b times a. And remember that when you have a times b, it's going to give something as b times a, which is what? ab, and it's equal to what? B a. Since multiplication is commutative. So now have that this implies the absolute value of a, absolute value of b is less or equal to absolute value of what? B, sorry, a, b. So you see, you kill it, you bury it. Now, the next method now is some kind of hard, because we're going to find a machine that is going to do that. And machine that is going to do that will follow some certain steps and some certain processes. So let's go over to that one. First of all, we find the machine by saying that we know where the machine is, where we can find the machine. And where can we find the machine? We know that a and b comes from the real line. So whenever you see the real, from the real line, you can you can find A and what? B. And real line consists of what? Three things: the negative, 0, and the positive. So we are going to be considering many cases. You can say case 1, A is greater than 0, B is greater than 0. So when A is greater than 0, B is greater than 0, from this now we can say absolute value of AB is less or equal to absolute value of A, absolute value of what? B. So now, and if A is greater than 0, B is greater than 0, this implies that A, B is also greater than 0. I don't know if you understand. And if A is greater than 0, B is greater than 0, this implies, okay, let me clean this one first. This implies that absolute value of A is greater than what? 0. And this implies that absolute value of B is greater than what? 0. Now here, this implies that absolute value of AB is greater than what? 0. So, from here, we can just say that absolute value of AB is less or equal to absolute value of what? A, absolute value of what? B. We put for all A, B in what? R. So, let me say this one again. Let me come back again. So, we know that, okay, we can find A and B in R and say, guess 1, A is greater than 0, B is greater than 0. And the absolute value of any number which is greater than 0 is that same number. And the absolute value of any number greater than 0 again is that same number. So now, here is A multiplied by B is greater than 0 since A and B are greater than what? 0. So now, we find the absolute value greater than 0, absolute value greater than 0. So now, this here is less than or equal to this one here. So let's go back to case 2. Say case 2, A greater than 0, B less than what? 0. So, if A is greater than 0, B is less than 0, we now say that the absolute value of A is greater than what? 0, and absolute value of B is what? Minus, is less than 0. Is less than what? 0. So now, since A is okay, and A multiplied by B, AB here would, AB here will be less than 0. So that the absolute value of AB now will be less than what? 0. So now, let's continue. So we now say absolute value of AB. Absolute value of AB is still going to return the positive number, which is less or equal to what? Absolute value of A, absolute value of what? B. Don't know if you understand that. Now go to case 3. When A is negative, B is what? Positive. The same thing holds. And the absolute value of A is what? Absolute value of A will now be less than 0. Now it's going to be, it's going to return what? Negative. What I mean by it's going to return negative, absolute value of this now is going to give us what? Minus A. So which is less than 0. It's less than 0, and absolute value of B will be greater than 0. And we have that A, B is less than 0. Since A is less than 0, and absolute value of A, B will now be less than 0. So we now say that absolute value of AB is less or equal to absolute value of what? Absolute value of A and absolute value of what? B. So consider the final case, case 4. Case 4, A less than 0, B less than 0. Now this implies that absolute value of A is less than 0, absolute value of B is less than 0. What next are we going to do now? We are now going to say that A multiplied by B, is going, okay, is greater than 0. Since A is negative, B is negative, negative multiplied by negative is going to give us positive, and therefore absolute value, it implies that absolute value of AB now is going to be greater than what? It's going to be greater than 0. So now what does this mean? That absolute value of AB is less or equal to what? Absolute value of A and absolute value of what? B. So let's consider case 5. Case 5, where A is equal to 0, B is equal to 0. B is equal to what? 0. So absolute value of A equals to 0, absolute value of B equal to 0, and AB is equal to 0, and the absolute value of AB is equal to 0. So meaning that absolute value of AB is less or equal to absolute value of A and absolute value of what? B. So whichever case, we're going to find out that the absolute value of this, absolute value of AB is going to be less or equal to what? Absolute value of A multiplied by absolute value of what? B. Let us go from the beginning again. So let me rephrase what I said again. Here we have A is greater than 0, B is greater than 0, and since they are greater than 0, AB must be greater than 0. So here, absolute value of A here is going to be greater than 0, and absolute value of B is going to be greater than what? 0. Since both of them are greater than 0, meaning that absolute value of this is less or equal to what? This. Do you understand now? Now come over to this one. This one is greater than 0. Here's this one is less than 0. And AB here is less than what? 0. And automatically, since AB is less than 0, absolute value of this is going to be less than 0. So it's going to be less than 0, so that when we carry out the arithmetic operation, we are going to get a positive what? Number. Remember, when I say less than 0, I don't mean what I mean. For example, B is equals to minus 2. From here, B is less than 0. So absolute value of minus 2 is going to give us what? It's going to give us minus into minus what? 2. This is what I mean by is less than 0, to give us what? 2 as our answer. So that is all. These are all the cases, and there are so many more cases, like when A is less than 0, B is equals to 0, or when A is equal to 0, B is less than 0, or when A is equal to 0, B is greater than 0, or when A is greater than 0, B is equal to 0. So considering all those cases, we are still going to get that this is going to be less than or equal to this. If you change this equality sign again, if you didn't see an equality sign, you have that absolute value of AB is greater or equal to this. When you carry it out, you still see another different thing. So my next video, I will do this one. My next video, I'm going to do this one. Make sure you follow them one after another serially so that you don't get lost. And if there's any correction you wish to give me, drop it down in the comment box below. Thank you, and do have a nice day.